and they lay it out. And after they've laid it out, it'll form a storyline. And then they'll take this person, they'll put this person into the storyline. No, you don't fit the facts. We're going to discard you. We take the next person, we put that in. Until you get your persons who fit into that group. And if there are facts that don't allow that person to fit, see it like a puzzle piece, it nearly fits, it just doesn't fit. Then they'll go and look at any anomalies in the facts and they'll say, is this fact true? Is that fact right? If they can prove faults in the fact, they might amend the storyline. If they can't, then they have to discard that person. But what's been happening for the longest of time is not necessarily that the science has been bad, but that bad analysis has been done and a lot of conjecture has been presented to people as if they were facts. Now, this is the question that often gets asked. If that is true, why do so many people stubbornly stick with theories of creation that just do not fit? Now, me and you might think that it is true what is said when people say that scientists are always objective. It's not really true. They hang on to their prejudices just as much as pretty much you and I would hang on to our prejudices. You've got to remember, if I say to you, I'm going to somehow disprove everything that you believe and place your being in. Never mind that the majority of these people have built their lives and their reputations on theories. And once those theories are proved wrong, it means that X amount of years of work that they've done is also proved wrong and they become discredited. Dresden James summed it up beautifully when he said, a truth's initial commotion, in other words, the big resistance to a truth, is directly proportional to how deeply that lie was believed. It wasn't the world being round that made people angry, but that the world wasn't flat. When a well-packaged web of lies has been sold gradually to the masses over generations, the truth will seem utterly preposterous and its speaker a raving lunatic. The ideal tyranny is that which is ignorantly self-administered by its victims. The most perfect slaves are, therefore, those which blissfully and unawarely enslave themselves. In other words, for these guys, part of the reason why they so viciously withstand some of the newer facts that are coming to the fore is because how deeply they've bought into what they have been preaching all along. So why is this important to you and me? It sets the tone for everything else that's going to follow. If I'm not 100% sure of the creation story, how do I believe anything else? Why, if I'm going to discard that as the truth, maybe the flood isn't quite true. Maybe the flood hasn't got it right. Maybe if this Bible is just a great poetry story and an allegory of how it may have been, well, maybe the Messiah isn't true. Maybe the crucifixion wasn't quite right. We used to say that the resurrection wasn't a hoax. It's just idiomatic of what may have happened rather than what truly happened. It makes the difference for us between what might be either a weak, watered-down fairy tale that is told. As somebody once said to me, and it made me very sad, my sister-in-law, and she's gone to be with the Lord, and I'm not belittling what she believed in. She was a beautiful person. But she once said that irrespective of whether the Bible is true or not, she would continue to be a Christian simply because of the good principles that are in place. And while I thought this was great in a way, I also thought it's sad in a way. Because to me, it's a little bit like a second prize. Yes, it's good principles, but it is amazing truth as well, far beyond just that. So it makes a difference between whether we're talking about good principles that we just consider in the Bible, or a rock which we can stand on and say, this is the Word of God, this is the truth that is preached, this is what impacts my life. Good apologetics. Apologetics doesn't mean to apologize for your faith. Apologetics means to give good, solid reasoning behind what you believe. And it's not just something that me and you may feel drawn towards. It is, in fact, something that we have a mandate out of the Bible. In 1 Peter 3:15, we'll read, "Instead, you must worship Christ as Lord of your life. And if someone asks you about your hope as a believer, always be ready to explain it." Now, the thing that I want to put here to you, more so than anything else about you guys sharing with other people, and that's what we should do. But I want to ask you this. If we know, and I promise you, it is the truth, if we know your kids are not going to be taught the truth at school, if they're going to be fed theories as if they were fact, who will teach them? If you don't teach them, who will? The school's not going to do it. It takes us a little step further over there, and that's about the educational system as a whole. Speak to teachers, and I know there's one or two teachers in here at least, and people that work at schools, and specifically at private schools. Ask a teacher how dramatic the impact is if they share God with one of the children, if they share Christ with one of the kids. Somebody that's in our home group recently, a lady who's a teacher, she said she wants to move from this school to a different school, to one of the Christian schools, because she is so frustrated, because she sees so many kids with so many problems that she wants to help. And she's allowed to talk to them about, be good, be nice, be all those things. But there's no way that she can speak life into their lives. How sad has that become? Now we might ask ourselves, but why is this? Why does the governments of the world so stubbornly stick to this? Well, it's quite simple. It's because they have painted themselves into a secular corner, because they're no longer allowed to put out any other school of thought, because the moment that they might open the door to anything beyond instantaneous combustion creating the world, it means that they are no longer necessarily going to be secular. They may offend the Muslims, they'll offend the Hindus, they'll offend these guys, they'll offend those guys. Somewhere along the line they're going to offend somebody. And all they are left with is this incredibly blunt, dumb instrument to work with called the Big Bang Theory and Darwinism. And they have to try and work around this. Now remember, we said just now 50 scientists wrote the book in 6 days. There's a website address, and I'm going to put all of this up on a website which I'll give to you afterwards if you'd like to go and check any of the resources for your own benefits. And it is a scientific dissent from Darwinism. For lack of a better word, call it a petition that had been signed by a number of scientists. Once again, it's not a Christian perspective which they were coming from. It developed from a large debate in the US whether the federal government should continue pushing Darwinism in schools or not. And these people were saying no, because there's too many flaws to it. It reads at the beginning, "We are skeptical of claims for the ability of random mutation and natural selection to account for the complexity of life. Careful examination of the evidence for the Darwinian theory should be encouraged." So get where these guys are coming from. They are not full on rushing and saying this is all wrong, but they're saying we need to re-evaluate this. Now, I just put the bulk, beg your pardon. I just put the bulk of this up here, just to start giving you guys a flavor of what it's all about. But this is only page 1 of 23 of these. If you add them all up, it comes to roughly 847 different scientists. And these are all, one of the graduating things that are over here is that the people had to have doctoral degrees, PhDs. In other words, we're not talking about a first year student here that was saying, well, I don't get it. We're talking about guys that are at the top of their field, and some of the best universities in the world, including MIT, Harvard, Cambridge, top people that are saying it deserves another look. It deserves another look. Okay, now the one that I promised myself I wasn't going to make too many jokes about it, but I just thought it was just a little bit too funny, and it's from the Big Bang Theory. And as part of that, I'd like us to just debunk a couple of myths within the Big Bang Theory. Now, if it seems like I've got my foot on the gas today, when we're going through this, I'm just trying to keep to our time frame, and we've got quite a bit to work with over here. But remember, a lot of what we're doing here is like skipping a stone across the water. It's just touching the water every now and again. There's a lot more depth, and there's a lot that we're skipping. But that's why I'm going to put it on a website for you guys to be able to find some more information on. The Big Bang Theory is not a tightly defined term. If you go to somebody else and you say, I like cars, and the other guy says, yeah, I like cars too, and this guy's mind might be, I like Ford. He might be thinking, I'm a Hilux man. It might initially sound like the same thing, but there's a lot of things under that. Now, as I said, I'll try not to make too much fun of it, but I do find it a little bit funny. First there was nothing, and then it all exploded. Now, there are 4 primary models of the Big Bang Theory. The first one is what was referred to as the steady state model, which Einstein, in his latter years, reluctantly admitted as his greatest mistake that he had made professionally. There was the hesitation model, which was, in a little bit of a rush, put together as a replacement for the flaws in the steady state model. But already in the 1960s, it was not withdrawn, but it was refuted so heavily that it was put on the back burner. It was then replaced with what is referred to as the oscillation model, and that was again refuted because of something called entropy laws and a lack of mass, which made the mathematics behind it fall flat, so it couldn't perfectly work. That was then again replaced with what is referred to as the inflation model. The inflation model now is being taken apart simply because it relies on what is referred to as anti-gravity forces that are theoretical, they've never been observed, they've never been tested. They are just somebody's fictional possibility of what might have happened. One of the biggest errors in the Big Bang Theory is something called redshift. Now, chaps, I'm going to try and explain this as simple as possible. When you look at wave propagation, as a wave propagates itself, if this is the point where it started over here, the further that wave travels, eventually it starts to lengthen itself out. Now, if I were to take my arm here and move it about, and I said, this is the width that my arm's traveling, the tips of my fingers are traveling, that is far, and that is a long wave. Over here is moving a little bit, so that is a very short wave. So the shorter the wave of radiation that I get, the closer I know the object is. So, for example, if I was sitting here, and to the gentleman over there, and I measured how long the wave is, I could theoretically say he's that far away. If I took it all the way to the back where Radloff is, it would give me a longer wave, and I'd say, therefore, because the wave is longer that's coming from Radloff, it means that Radloff is further away than what I am over there. And if seen in a visible light over there, if it's red, it's by theory, it's far away. If it's in the blue sector, it's closer to me. Now, what this meant to them is they based the expanding universe on the redshift theory. In other words, they looked at the stars, and if the light was analyzed and was seen to be red, it was seen to be moving away. If the light was green, in this case, it meant that it was stationary. If the light was blue, it was meant to be moving towards you. So within the redshift theory over there, they found these red stars and came to the conclusion everything is expanding. And the best way to explain it is to say that the Earth over here, that was the universe originally, and now it started expanding because of the Big Bang that took place. All the dots, if you consider this as a balloon with a bunch of dots, the more you blow the balloon up, the further the distances between various points started becoming over there. So everything is expanding and moving away from each other. Is there something wrong with the theory? Even the math behind it. It's actually very good.